Hello chess friends and welcome to Zardo's chess channel and welcome to the round 26 of the TCEC season 15 super final between the two top engines Leela C0 and Stockfish. So again we had a very nice positional game between the two top engines, and I've been also criticized a little bit by saying this is a positional game, that I have already revealed the result of the game. Well, it's not my fault that Stockfish cannot play these positional games. We'll see again a top game by Leela C0 in this positional approach of the Nd2 Nf6, this counter Nd2 Indian setup with knight on f3, and Stockfish really doesn't get along with this positional approaches of the game. Stockfish loves probably this tactical battles here. Leela C0 really paralyzes in this game. Stockfish ability to play, and you see one particular moment in the game that this importance of this possibility to push a pawn. Well, it doesn't care how much more pawns you have on the board. You just calculate your pawns by the ability to play with them, to push them forward, to make progress with them. When you cannot make progress with your pawns, it basically doesn't mean you anything, because you're not a pawn up when you're not able to push this pawn. So this principle will be very well explained through this game, and we'll see Leela C0 will give up 2 pawns, but it doesn't matter. Stockfish will be too pushed away in this game, and we have a really perfect boa constrictor game that I always love to say here by the top engine Leela C0. So let's see the game. D4 was played, knight on f6, c4, and e6. We have the Nd2 in the defense, and these top engines, they're going most often in this knight on f3 into this counter Nd2 setup. Here with the knight on f3, we are not allowing our opponent to play this the spin after knight on c3. I've explained it many times. I'm repeating myself, but as said, this knight on f3 after bishop on b5 and similar ideas, we can play simply knight on d2, and black doesn't threat this bishop on c3 idea and doubling up pawn situation. So here b6 was played, and this is now the most common and one of the best ways for black to continue in the game, because we're waiting a little bit, we're delaying the situation, we're waiting white, what's white going to do. If knight on c3, then we will play bishop on b4 again, and here also the most common reply is the move bishop on g2, competing on this very active diagonal. So bishop on a6, and now b3 was played. If you play something like knight on d2, it's also a common line. It can be played again. You get bishop on b4, which is attacking this king, and this knight is a little bit stuck to the defense of this pawn on c4. That's why here Leela plays b3. We're again waiting a little bit here, and bishop on b4 was played, and now bishop on d2. So here bishop on e7 was played, and this is now also sort of a positional approach of this Nd2 Indian defense. We have gained a tempo because white has already played with the bishop on d2, and if now white develops the knight on c3, so again this bishop will need many moves in order to maybe find the best square. After bishop on g5, you see after bishop on g5 you don't have any more the spin or similar stuff. We can simply go castling here and really develop maybe knight on c6, or here d6, or knight from b2 d7, or going even maybe bishop on b7. So this bishop on b4 and then bishop on e7 idea by black is a little bit to slow down white's progress in the development. But here bishop on g2 was played by Leela, and here c6. Of course the threat was something like knight on e5 and discovered attacks on the rook. Here bishop on c3. So you see Leela plays a very tricky line. You'll see what's all about. So here the problem is that black cannot play this common idea of the Nd2 Indian to play maybe d6 and then e5 to make some progress, maybe with e4, which is really one of the was one of the most common ideas to play as black here. Here the bishop on c3 prevents such ideas, and with knight on d2 we are also taking out this e4 square in the center. But there is this problem about this bishop on c3, because here Stockfish played immediately d5, and you see Stockfish is already challenging now this weakness on c4, and here Leela goes and sacrifices the pawn by simply castling. So castling also played by Stockfish, and now knight on e5. The idea is, of course, if you take, then we can simply take out this pawn and this would be deadly, or we can even take b takes on c4, so this pawn is protected. Then after that maybe knight on d2 and really fix the position here in the center. But here knight from f to d7 was played, also a common idea, because we are not allowing this knight in the center, we want to kick it away. And if you play something knight on d2 here, well, you can simply take here this pawn after d takes e5. You see that white has double loved pawns, and here we can in the next move maybe take out if knight takes, really simplify the position. So as said, it's not something that white can really make some progress here. Maybe we can also take out this knight, creating more weaknesses in the position. Okay, we have troubles maybe to develop the knight, but the bishop pair is not so good. I think here the bishop is blocked out by its own pawn. We can compete on the d file, and maybe in 10 or 20 moves go simply after this weakness. So the weak pawns of course c4, a2, and this e5. So that's why after knight on e5 and knight from f to d7, knight on d3 was played, and here Leela gives up the pawn. So we have d takes c4, we have now knight on b4, and now bishop takes on b4, bishop takes on b4, and now c takes b3. And the problem is here that you cannot take the rook. If you take out the rook, then you get b2, and you see we are threatening to take the rook. If you try something like knight on d2, we first, of course, take the rook on a1 with the promotion, queen takes, and here knight on f8, and this is now of course completely winning endgame here for black with one piece up. So that's why it was sort of a tricky line by Stockfish. A takes b3 was played. And okay, what are the advantages or disadvantages now from white and black's perspective? Well, white is pawn down, but white has a huge activity with the pieces. Now the rooks are rook is under fire. The bishops are aiming on very nice diagonals. We have also the open a file. We have also the possibility to play the move e4, gaining our central control with their own pawns. So many good strategical elements here for white. So that's why this one pawn down situation is not something that you have to worry. Maybe for those who have troubles to play against his bishop on a6 line of the Nimzo Indian, I think it's a perfect variation. At least it's a clear line. You can really make some progress with your bishops here. I think I'm going to apply this. As said, I really love these engine games because they're helping me out, and I had also my troubles with this bishop on a6 setup by white and by black, and I will for sure try this line out. So rook on e8 of course was played, and now knight on d2 with the preparation to play the move e4, knight on f6, and now knight on c4. We are targeting this weakness, this d6 pawn, the d6 square, with an attack on the rook with some double attack motifs, with some deflection motifs. So that's why here first knight on d5 was played with the tempo on the bishop, and this really closes this diagonal for the bishop. After bishop on d2, here knight on e7 was played, and the problem is if you try to kick away the knight on e4, okay, you have managed to kick it away, but again you're closing this diagonal for the bishop with your own pawn. So this knight on d5 fixing the center is a really nice defensive idea here by Stockfish. So after bishop on d2, knight on e7 was played, and now bishop on f4. We want to get use of these bishops. You see Leela played sort of a transposition of the bishop, just going on another diagonal, playing really actively with the bishop, because you have to get use of them. You have to open files, open diagonals, just in order to make this bishop pair work. H6 was played probably with the idea to play the move G5, kicking away the bishop. Sometimes you have to restrict your opponent's bishop's ability to play by simply pushing pawns and kicking it away. So that's why here H4. But this H4 also is a prophylactic move, but it creates a certain staticity. It's not easy now to make dynamic pawn structures. Whenever you push your pawns forward, it's not easy maybe to create the flexibility with maybe h3, g4, f4, and e5 ideas. Now with the h4, when you play g4, it could be a weakness. So you see, you have already pushed your pawn too far. But as said here, Stockfish tries really to battle positionally against Leela, and here he tried bishop takes on c4, b takes c4, of course, and okay. Now Black's idea is to create a blockade, but the problem is that in order to make a blockade, you have to push some pawns. And how to do that? How to push pawns here? Basically, on the queen side, well, it's hard to push a pawn anyway. You cannot push the a5, you can't push the b5, because this diagonal gets open. You cannot play c5, e5 you cannot play. So you see, although Stockfish is one pawn up, it's really hard to make use of this pawn, because as said, the ability, the pawn's ability is simply to push the pawn forward and maybe try promotion. So here it's really hard to push some pawns. Knight on d7 was played, trying to develop the knight again, maybe rook on the c8 or c5 idea. So but this a7 pawn is hanging, so you see these bishops are really controlling the whole board. Rook on a6 was played again with the idea to not allow Stockfish to make some progress with the pawns, creating a simple blockade against this potential a5 or a4 move. That's why knight on b8 was played. But okay, here rook on a3, staying on this very important file, and still continue maybe with ideas to doubling up with the queens and attack this weakness on a7. So that's why here knight on d7 was played, and now queen on a1 with a double attack on this pawn. So that's why a5, a forced move. You have to defend this pawn, you cannot lose this pawn. If you lose the pawn, it's of course a completely winning game here for white, because with the bishop pair against this knight, and although white is a pawn down, Leela has this very healthy pawn structure, because all of the pawns are connected, so we don't have pawn islands. All of these pawns are connected to each other. They can make really a certain dynamicity in the middle game. So as said, this pawn down situation is not something that Leela probably worked. So rook on d1, also very healthy move, creating this discovered attack possibilities on the queen on d8. Here queen on c8, getting out of this diagonal, maybe also with the protection of the c6. The c6 pawn is a little bit loose here. So bishop on d6, fixing now the bishop on a very active square. It's hard here for black to attack this bishop. Queen on d8 was played because of course the threat was something like taking, and then after that going after this bishop. So here queen on d8, and now rook on b3. You see, we're simply attacking this weak pawns. Knight on f6, we have now c5, and here knight from e to d5 was played. Maybe here a better idea for Stockfish would have been b takes c5 after maybe d takes c5, then you can maybe really fix this knight. And okay, we have now maybe also weak pawn, but at least the position gets static, and knights love of course static positions. Again with some e4 moves, okay, we can play maybe knight on e7 again, but again you blocked out your own bishop, so this bishop would be a good one, but this would be really a bad one. And still we could try make some progress and maybe fix our knight on this square, or another square maybe on g6. So when you're playing with the knight, you're simply searching for some good squares for your knight to create some outposts. Here e4 was played anyway. Here knight on b4, and now queen on b2. it was a slightly inaccuracy here. Here maybe Leela should have gone here and make the move e5. Then after knight on d5. Okay, you created again this static pawn structure on the king side, but at least you have deflected these two knights from the defense of the king here. Now you see the king doesn't have any protectors and around him, only these pawns, and we could maybe here go make some progress with some moves f4, f5 and similar ideas, because this knight, it's really hard to get back in order to defend the king. Probably black would be forced to play the move knight on e7 and then knight on f5. Okay, as said, queen on b2 was played, and now finally b5. And what black has managed to do now is to create two pass pawns on the queen side. But again, I'm pointing you out that these two pawns will never go forward. It's not easy here to push the pawns. a4 you cannot push anywhere because you lose the knight. So in order to push this b pawn, you have to remove somehow your knight. So I said you will need many tempos just in order to make this make this work on the queen side. And you see that Leela has made really progress in the center with the move d4 and e4, and now probably with some possibilities to play the move f4. Queen on e2, getting the queen on the other side. Now the game has really changed. The game is transposed to the king side, and we are bringing another attacker in the game. So knight on h7 was played, and now rook on e3. Very nice move. If the position gets opened, we want, of course, to have the battery on the e file. Very nice positional move here by Leela C0. Rook on a7 was played, and this was also slight inaccuracy, getting loose of this very nice connection on the 8th rank. Maybe here a better idea would have been knight on f8, creating a more compact position, staying with these three pieces connected, and you'll see that this rook on a7 will have a certain disadvantage in the continuation by Stockfish, because Stockfish really lost the connection of the pieces here. Rook on a1 was played, again not allowing the rook to go somewhere, because this pawn could be again attacked by two rooks here. So queen on f6 was played, and now bishop on e5, queen on d8, and now bishop on d6. Again, queen on f6, and probably Stockfish went here for a draw, but here simply rook on d1. Still Leela continues the game with very active play. Queen on d8, and now rook on e1. We have rook on a8. Stockfish sees his mistakes and goes back with the rook. Now rook on f1, of course, with the preparation to play some f4 moves. Rook on a7, and now finally f4. Okay, you see that Leela could have make anything here in the position, because black's position is too paralyzed. Rook on d7 was played, attacking this annoying bishop. This bishop is really stuck here, and here Leela plays simply d5. Finally get a pawn breakthrough here. E takes d5, and a very nice pawn sacrifice now again with the move e5. Very nice move, because you see with e takes d5 you have also cut off this potential knight on d5 outpost. So it's really important, because black's main defensive idea was to fix this knight on this square d5. Here you take out the square for your knight, although you gain the pawn. But here finally we can really make some progress, because black doesn't have any more this e6 pawn. Now we have a very strong attack with 4 on 3 situations here on the king side. With the bishop pair, with this huge activity of rooks, this is of course a completely better position for white. Again, it's unbelievable. Stockfish with the 2 pawns up still cannot move any pawns. A4 doesn't bring you so much. D4 also, we can play simply rook on d4 and attack it. So as said, nothing special here. So here Leela Stockfish tries d4, and okay, rook on e4, now d3, and now queen on e3. Okay, black has made some progress here, but it's really a weak pawn. This knight is the key defender of this pawn. If you play something like d2, of course you lose the pawn. So this pawn is not a threat at all. So knight on f8 was played, and now king on h2, also very cool positional move, getting the king out of the first rank in some potential trades of the rooks on the first rank. You don't want to get some checks. So as said, you see a perfect boa constrictor here by Leela. Stockfish cannot play at all with his pieces. So here knight on d5, desperate move with an attack on the queen. Queen takes on d3. So again, very it just improved the position of white's queen. So knight on e6, and now finally f5. You see now the flexibility of this pawn structure. You can really push forward, and here Stockfish desperately tries this positional exchange of the positional exchange sacrifice by playing rook on d6. We have 8x d6, and now knight takes on c5 with this fork on the rook and then the queen. But of course we have first the check, queen takes on e8, and now queen takes on c2. This is now really a forced tactical line, because now the knight is under attack. Knight on b7, and now rook on c1 with an attack on this weakness on c6. You cannot push, of course, forward c5 because you lose the knight. So that's why knight on e3, bishop takes on c6, queen takes on queen on e5 was played, and now queen on c3. So here Leela really searches for simplifications. Knight takes on d6, but now simply queen takes on e5, knight on g4 with the fork, taking out the queen, and now bishop on b5. This is now a really important moment, because if you take, of course, then we have here the possibility in the next move to take a knight. So this is really, as said, an important moment, because now black doesn't have anymore the two connected pass pawns, and this is now a completely winning endgame here for white. So knight on f5 was played here, rook on c5, f6 was played in order to protect this knight, but now h5, creating a blockade against the potential g6 move. Here king on f7 was played, rook on c7 with the check, knight on e7, and now bishop on a4. We want to bring the bishop on this b3 diagonal. It's very important to restrict the ability of this black king to play. King on e6, and now rook on a7, knight on f3, and now rook on a6, king on d5, and now bishop on b3. Very nice check here. Rook on king on c5 was split, and now finally rook on a5. Also very cool idea here by Leela to get this king now deflected from these three pawns here. Now the king is far away from the pawn, so this pawns could be an object of white's attack. King on d6, so Stockfish also sees his mistakes, goes back with the king, and now rook on a6. We have king on c7, bishop on d3, king on b7, bishop on e2, of course protecting the rook, rook on g5, and now king on g3. And the main idea how to play this endgame is somehow go with the king, maybe here, and try to attack this piece, this pawns on g7, f6, and h6, and somehow restrict this knight's abilities to play. So here king on b8 was played, but now bishop on c4, king on c7, king on f4. Okay, we'll see king on d7. Stockfish can play some checks, but Leela can really escape from these checks in a couple of moves. King on d7, g4 was played, fixing really the pawn structure. Of course, we want maybe to bring also the bishop here on e6, and then to play it maybe on f5. King on c7 was played, king on e3, now knight on h7, bishop on d3 with an attack on the knight, knight on g5 again, king on d4, knight on c6 with a check, now king on king on c5, knight on e6 with a check, here king on b5, here knight on d4, and now king on c4, and there are no possible checks anymore by the knights here, so that's why knight on c6 was played, and now bishop on f5 with an attack on the bishop, here knight on e5, king on d5, knight on f4, and finally king on e4, and you see you cannot play anymore any checks here by the knight. In the next move the threat is of course rook on a7, and if you get rid of this pawn, this is of course game over. So here knight on e2 was played, and in this position Stockfish designed, because as said the idea is to play knight on a7, and in the next move you can really grab this important pawn. Then after that you probably grab also this h6 pawn and will create a pass pawn situation. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. It was really again a positional battle. Again, Stockfish, I see Stockfish doesn't get along with this positional approaches by Leela. Leela really again played this ball constrictor game, again paralyzing all of these pieces. Perfect restriction with so many pieces on the board. Again, a positional beauty by this top engine. Okay, meanwhile you can watch my other commented chess games played by these top engines, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.